Transmutations. You are being connected with the Cosmic Core. Careful, the first step is tricky.
You have entered a new level of consciousness.
We are adjusting your frequencies. Hooking up your psychic telephone. And blasting your heart with solar flares of love light. Welcome to the Cosmic Core with me, your soul sister and astral astronaut, occult priestess. Allow me to give you a tour of the Cosmic Core, a bit of a wrap to serve as a map. Coalescing cosmic consciousness, coming at you with a Darshan Disco Shaktipat Sitar eye, blasting sonar to your third eye, dancing with bikinis and bikinis, mystics and yoginis in the astral sky, waving at the shamans and the hippies as they drift by. Understanding through love, we never die. We are the Platinum Ray, the Diamond Codes, the Starseeds, and the Not-So-Ascended Masters. Souls of two worlds, walking between them as best we can, perfecting the great work. We are beyond time, the hermits, the healers, the compassionate ones, the light warriors, mask rippers, and systems busters. We are missionaries from the upper realms, planting the seeds, anchoring the vibrations, teaching the way, unlocking DNA, cleaning up the bloodlines, clearing karma, and preparing humankind for the greatest show on Earth. Episode 4 of The Cosmic Core welcomes author, occultist, and Youtuber Extraordinaire TARL WARWICK, aka Styxhexenhammer666. I am new to the phenomenon that is TARL, having only found his videos last month. I am very impressed with his work ethic and intellectual standards. You may be a student of TARL's writings on the occult. You may also watch him for his unfiltered and in-your-face political commentary. His website and YouTube channels are vast rabbit holes ripe for exploration. Styxhexenhammer666 has quite the following, hinting at a cult of personality. Let's get to know this enigmatic character together as we go into the Cosmic Core with two Aquarians of the coming age. Welcome to the Cosmic Core, TARL WARWICK. Thank you for agreeing to do this interview. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well, and yourself?
I'm good, thank you. I'm happy to have you here. You are our first male guest in the Cosmic Core.
Yay.
Yay. I have found you on YouTube in probably the past month or so and got instantly addicted to your videos. I will tell you that I don't mean to make any comparisons whatsoever, but the last videos I used to watch like this was Russell Brand when he first came out with a revolution idea. But then nowadays, I guess I've changed a little bit and I've been watching you. And I'm not the smartest person when it comes to political views. You know, I don't really have any skin in that game. But I love listening to you speak about it because I think that you have a very refreshing point of view.
Well, I would say it's not so much refreshing as a rehashing of old ideas from the 1700s. Just, the general revolutionary mindset, wanting to be able to live your life the way you want to. I see this as intrinsic within the occult, too. I've spoken on that. You can't really have a spiritual population if you're not able to make spiritual decisions. The state will necessarily attempt to interfere with it if they're capable of doing so. It's one thing I feel some occultists have left behind common sense when they delve into like modern day fascism or something like that. It's primarily it's a form of role play, really.
Indeed. I think that, again, you said a mouthful there. It's a form of role play. You could really put that on most things these days.
Yeah, the establishment politicians of the world are also a bunch of role players or method actors. They talk a big game about caring about the public. In reality, they care about their wallets.
I agree. I believe Sting said they all seem like game show hosts to me.
Yeah. Well, I can't say that I like Sting too much, but he's right there.
Oh, just quoting an artist. So let's go back to the French Revolution. You're talking about the 1700s. What do you think was going on then that might be mirroring going on now?
I think they were involved with the occult, or at least a lot of them. If you've ever read some of the French materials from the era, we're talking not just the late 1700s, early 1800s, some of it's thinly veiled, like the French version of the Grand Grimoire. It's a thinly veiled reference to destroying monarchy, the dying sort of old guard mentality of Europe. It's really a steganographic work of hidden writing at its core. It's definitely a grimoire. It has a spiritual component to it. It's got rituals, but I don't know how literal they were meant to be taken. I think that sometimes if you delve into occult literature and you're looking for political, not just spiritual discourse, what you find is that there are often two intercompeting sort of layers of writing. There's the layer that some layperson reads. This is true within alchemy too. You read an alchemical text, and for the the peasantry of the time period, they see boil this tree root with tin and add in some boiled antimony, and here you're going to make gold. And those that were thinking more deeply, those that were initiated into these circles, realized it was actually a spiritual discourse. And then later, you get also a political discourse where you've got something that's saying, here's how you make a pact with the devil. Here's how you make a pact with Lucifuge. And what it's really saying to maybe the more Enlightenment era, sort of the nobility or the intelligentsia of the age, is really, here's, this system of government represents, and then it would use a demon or something like that really to speak about it.
How would they use that demon?
Well, if you look at the demons of, for instance, the Ars Goetia, from some of the later descriptions of it, it's very funny. Sometimes I believe it's the Grimorium Verum as well, that divides the continents of the time, Africa, Europe, or Eurasia, and then the Americas. It actually gives them each a different demon, gives them their own attributes, and it appears to be a veiled message about sort of the status of these three parts of the world. The demons are further, in some cases, they're taken from pagan lore anyway. You'd think of Ammon within the Goetia, or anything like that, appearing in much the same form as in Egypt. It's really quite strange.
Well, it's strange, I suppose, but we look back, let's go back to Egypt, I guess, since you brought that up, and the time of Akhenaten and the changing of the guards. And then I believe that Freemasonry came out of the Abrahamic Akhenaten rule, where that probably originated. I mean, it's all speculation at this point, isn't it?
Yeah, it can be difficult with the Masons. I'm not the most well-versed on that subject outside of, I know the Masons occasionally troll people by making allusions to Lucifer, by which they mean Jesus. They mean literally Phosphoros translated as Lucifer. It's sort of the older workings of the Gospels and so forth. Having read what I have about the Masons, though, there's a stark contrast really between the mock ritualism in essence of actual Masonic texts and sort of what people read into the mock ritualism over time. I can't say that I'm an expert on the Masons, though, certainly.
I understand. I will mention this for the spiritual aspect of my audience and the psychics out there. I do remember my last life in France during the Revolution as a rich child, grew up in a rich family, and as a teenager, I was female, and I was hoodwinked and taken to a Masonic lodge at night, and I took vows against my will at the behest of my family. So I do know spiritually in the fourth dimension about Masonic rites and soul contracts. And so I do follow the line from Egypt to Greece to Rome, where there was another changing of the guards. And, we can filter it all the way down to the French Revolution, but they all seem like little mirrors of each other, re-happenings, if you will, but also an evolution, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, things spiral over time. They definitely repeat in different forms. The U.S. is basically Rome now. Even the even the style of buildings in D.C. looks like you've stepped 2,000 years back in time and wandered into the Iberian Peninsula or something.
You're so intelligent, Tarl. I don't even know what that peninsula is.
Italy.
Thank you very much. It's the boot, you see. That's lovely. And you're right. The mythologist Joseph Campbell said, if you want to know a culture, look at its biggest buildings.
Yeah, that's pretty wise.
Yeah, you just made that point perfectly. So we have, now let's go back over to D.C. We have all of the statues, right, of the ancient Greek and Roman gods.
Yeah, we've even got our own that we created, Columbia.
Columbia. Yes, she's a hot topic on the Freeman Network.
At the very least, the goddess represents liberty and freedom, so, maybe one of the better of these sort of pantheons, I suppose. Certainly beats getting governed maybe by Hera or something like that, or Pluto.
Better than Pluto, I would agree with that. So do you think that the statues are representations of demons of America?
Demons in the original Greek sense of the term, yes. Intelligences or spirits.
Well, then I pronounce that daemon.
Yeah, daemon.
Excellent. All right.
Not demons in the maybe more grimoire-based sense, literally Beelzebub or something like that. A lot of people...
Your Yetzirah things.
Yeah, a lot of people think that it's intrinsically negative. That's not even the original meaning of the term.
Yeah, so let's explain that, because I can do it in really spiritual terms, and you can do it in more, like, hit-home terms. Like, I'm usually just too upstairs for people, so... Let's hear your take on demon versus daemon. Go.
I would say demon is almost entirely Christian or Muslim interpretation of any sort of being outside of the accepted core of beings, which is considered acceptable to work with or worship. For instance, within Christianity, it's okay to do magic if you're praying to God, to ask God to do magic for you. It's okay to pray to Jesus. It's okay to venerate, not worship, but venerate angelic forces as long as they're properly identified. But any other deities or anything outside of that, a ghost, a spirit, some other force, is, to them, it's intrinsically evil. The henotheists of Judaism.
Henotheists,
yes,
please.
Yeah, they weren't monotheists. They believed in other gods. They just considered them evil. That warped over time into belief in just having one god. And every other, what would have been considered other Baals, other deities from other cultures by the primordial Jews, turned into demons. And daimon, or daemon.
Well, let's go back, because Akhenaten was the one that changed the guard and said there's only one God.
Yeah, it's happened multiple times from multiple cultures.
Okay, go on.
Yeah, it's, and then the other meaning, the more original meaning, could also mean a ghost. It could mean some other detached spirit. It could mean a divine inspiration, as in literally being possessed by a daemon, or a daimon would literally mean like possessed by an idea through some means that you consider to be strange or supernatural. For instance, I've used the metaphor of writer with writer's block suddenly gets a really, really good idea and proceeds. That would be essentially a form of possession in that sense.
There's also the born out of the head full idea.
Yeah.
Like Zeus. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's multiple layers of metaphor there.
I love metaphors. So amazing. I mean, you pretty much put the smack down on Christianity, saying they only let their people look at certain spirits or souls that were approved, basically, by the church. And fairies and all the other little elementals and little magical things of nature were then made into negative creatures. Is this part of what you're saying?
Oh, yes. It's actually funny to see the interplay also between, especially in the Renaissance, the Catholics and the Protestants. The Catholics, if you read King James Demonology or any of these similar works, they generally tolerated sort of the white witch or the good spirit, the fairy folk or whatever. The Protestants considered them just to be much like they said Satan can appear as, something beautiful, something angelic. They say, no, those are evil spirits too. They're only appearing in a nice form. So they're also evil. And so you get that you get that interplay too.
It really does mess with your psyche if you're seeing angels or having, visitations, and then they tell you everything is evil.
Yeah, and then they killed each other over it. Wonder how much of a sin that was.
There you go. Well, that sounds like the trickster has entered the building at that point. Right?
Yeah, maybe their master wasn't Jesus after all at the time.
Ta-da! So, yeah, I know that deeply you and I have a lot of common ground. So where I got with my research with demon and daemon was demon, just classical church dogma. Daemon, for me, is actually the higher self or the perfected soul that lives in a heaven-like realm upstairs, I call it, in a higher vibrational realm, is more the full aspect of your soul that is not usually fully incarnated unless you're a fully enlightened Buddha, anointed Illuminati. Therefore, it is a goal of many occultists to integrate the masculine and feminine and have the divine marriage within through alchemy and become the golden soul, which is the daemon. And then I saw the church come around and start telling people, no, you have to come to church. We are your middleman between you and God and you and your higher self or your soul. And so they bifurcated the daemon from the person. And then you just ended up with a vessel, a person. And that personality began to take on ego and become, full of itself. And I did learn something recently, and it was partially through listening to you. We are all on a path of becoming something bigger than what we are now. And I would call that becoming God. And so if we're on the path to becoming God, then it's most important to integrate the soul at the highest level possible. Okay, I think I'm off that soapbox now.
I would agree with that. It's also about integrating the thought too, because when you enter a very limited religious, stricture-based system, you can't actually think freely. It holds mankind back as a collective, not just individually. If a person wants, it's not just the spiritual, it's everything, technology. Think about if mankind had kept listening to the church back in the Renaissance, how much further behind our technology would be. Oh, you can't use those telescopes. You might see that the moon is a spherical object. It's not like a dish sitting up in the sky. It'd be horrible. It would overthrow. It'd be heresy.
Yeah, because science and technology, in a way, are great awakeners, are they not?
Yeah. The occult should embrace science. It coincides with it more often than not, anyway.
Although I do see that the church and science are like dichotomous of each other. They are two sides of the same coin. Yeah,
it's funny that now the Vatican actually has one of the best telescopes after spending centuries burning people who use them.
Yeah, and the name of it is? The name of the telescope?
I believe it's called Lucifer, actually. Isn't it?
Yeah. I did some fact checking on that, and it's not, I believe it's more community owned. Like maybe it's not just the Vatican's telescope, but yes, they named it Lucifer. Much like the UN, the United Nations, and their Lucifer Trust. I mean, it's all the same people, if you ask me.
Yeah, well, the UN's so ineffective, they're less effective than the Vatican at everything they do.
But I've been wanting to say nowadays, I've called myself a conspiracy theorist now for about 8 years, but I'm starting to think I should just call myself a critical thinker, because that's really all it is.
Yeah. Oh, it's gotten even worse. Literally, since the election, everything's gone so far downhill with politics. I could never have believed it in my wildest dreams. Here I am. I'm bitter. I'm pessimistic about the political state of the world anyway. And I could never have imagined a few months ago how terrible things truly would get. These people, they now think that it's a conspiracy theory to suggest that the winner of a presidential election was not directly put in there by a foreign state. We've gotten to that strange point, and it ties...
Wow, that's all from the Clinton campaign, though, isn't it?
Yeah, they're saying, oh, well, the Russians certainly put Trump into power to control U.S. politics, and they actually consider you a conspiracy theorist if you don't believe that. They flipped it on its head.
They did, but this is their control. They're showing you what they think they're in control of.
Well, they're definitely losing it.
It was the WikiLeaks guy came out yesterday, right? Go ahead and tell about that.
Oh, I don't know what he said yesterday. Didn't he release files on who was it, Bolton and all of these others? Actually, Trump people. It's funny.
Wow, I didn't look at that part.
Yeah, he's released on Tillerson, too. So, I mean, if he's a Russian agent, why is he going after Trump's people now?
Well, I never thought he was. I actually had visions of Julian Assange years ago, and I saw him as like an archangel. So I've kind of trusted him since I had those visions.
Yeah, I trust Assange. I think he's being honest.
I just saw a very short article that Assange had come out to say that, no, I'm not a Russian spy, and here's some proof. So that was all. And I believe it was from RT, actually.
Yeah,
and,
it's not helpful that it has to be foreign media that actually reports what he says with any accuracy. We're also at the weird point where the U.S. media is now far less accurate on U.S. affairs than the Russian media. And I'm not it's like people have called me a Russian shill or something on Facebook. I have to keep pointing. I mean, they're not familiar with my YouTube work. I criticize Russia constantly. It is an autocracy. Putin is an oligarchic billionaire. But that doesn't mean that everything that goes wrong on this side of the Atlantic Ocean or the Pacific, considering how big Russia is, it doesn't mean that everything that goes on here is some sort of vast conspiracy. It's like McCarthyism or something.
If Putin really had that kind of power, he would have been taken out.
Yeah.
They just stand for it.
Well, Putin is also connected with Clinton. They don't even consider that for a moment. Clinton, as Secretary of State with Uranium One, she sold, I think it was a quarter of all U.S. uranium now belongs to the Russians because of a deal she signed. And what I think is happening is Putin's doesn't really care about who the U.S. president is because Russia's going to do what Russia does anyway. But the Democrats, because they lost, I think they're very, very worried that Trump is actually a rogue, actually a maverick, so they're seeking to sow enough discord before they lose their power here on inauguration in another, month and, 9 days or so. I think they're trying to weaken the political fabric of the entire world before then so they can keep too many things from getting accomplished in their absence.
It's a lot like the church you were describing.
Oh, yeah, it's a scorched earth policy. This was, were you familiar with the Economist cover for 2006, was it 2015 or 16?
Is this the one with all the tarot cards?
No, the old Economist cover for the very end of the year, it had a famous French painting, and I can't remember the name of it. And the story of the painting boiled down to a man's wife was actually cheating on him with the king. So he contracted syphilis and infected her, and then they all were infected. And the basic premise of the story was, if I can't have it to myself, then everybody will have it ruined. And it sort of eerily resembles what's going on now with the political establishment of the world. Now, it's like with the Pizzagate stuff. A lot of people think, oh, well, that means they're occultists. I don't believe that. I don't think most of them are intelligent enough to be occultists. They're too dumb to even understand the spiritual. They're really, if anything, they'd be like Pluto worshippers. Pluto in the sense of like gold and subterranean treasure or something like that, I guess.
All the root chakra stuff.
Yeah, they think at the lowest common level of human dignity, and they constantly use that in others through their propaganda.
And they push us down to the root as often as they can.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, it makes them lots of money. The almighty dollar, ooh.
Yeah, the more in desire we are, the more we're working and the more we're spending.
Yeah, people lose sight of the fact that they can actually change things, and those that would want to change them get so cynical they don't bother trying. It's a real slavery.
Interesting. Now, I was looking at this as I always do a big picture. I have Mercury and Pisces. I'm a big picture kind of girl. And I've understood for quite a while that the political climate that we live in these days is toxic, and something needs to change about the entire global system. And of course, someone has a plan for a new world order, but that's not the one I'm looking at.
Yeah. The only saving grace, I guess, is that human nature kicks in and all these powerful people stab each other in the back, thus preventing the New World Order from arising.
Yeah, I do see a scenario somewhat like that.
Yeah.
It's not a changing of the guards this time. It's a change, period. And that's what I'm here for.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just a big deal.
I mean, I'm sure a lot of your listeners probably, some probably detest Trump. I'm not a hardcore Trump fan myself. I just see it as, well, his platform fundamentally is different from what we have had, in that he was actually willing to even attack members of his own class and party. And that's something we haven't had actually in a while. And if you look at the reaction of the media and the political establishment, things are not the same as they were before the election. The way they're acting is honestly bizarre.
Oh, no, I totally
It's totally different. It's unprecedented. And people should probably be a little bit more worried about what our bureaus and our legacy media and so forth are doing right now. They need to keep a close eye on the government at the moment, because it seems like there's some scheming going on behind the scenes that could get very worrying.
But isn't it kind of obvious?
Well, there's so many scandals in D.C., it's not exactly sure which one it involves.
Again, big picture, it just seems obvious that the whole system is crumbling. And I think that Trump is a great character, even, to do that, to carry it off with flair and style. Well, that's entertaining.
The other possibility I've thought of is maybe Trump is fulfilling the sort of, what was his name, Prescott Bush sort of business affair stuff and actually trying to usurp the government, and that maybe for a moment we should consider the vague possibility that he actually is a fascist. I don't think so.
Leading to corporatocracy?
Yeah. It was attempted under FDR. Now, I'm not a fan of FDR. I'm not a fan of any of these people for the most part. But if we're going to delve into the realm of, hey, there's something fishy going on in government, we should consider both sides, I suppose. I'm of the mind that he actually is a maverick. He is attempting to oust some of the old power centers. I think that's a good thing. But I have to at least consider the possibility that the much more horrifying opposite is also true. It's one reason I have to criticize him if he does something that seems shitty. If he does something that seems wrong. Even those that voted for him need to criticize him for that. People did that for Obama and Bush. We should do it for Trump, too.
Yeah, these are people that you watch over, not people that you worship.
Yeah. Trump is currently not a politician, which exonerates him somewhat. But once he takes the oath of office, he's a politician. And I feel the same way generally about all politicians. I'm going to trust them only if they give me a very good reason. It's like the CIA tells us the Russians rigged the election. Where's the evidence? Oh, we don't have any. It's top secret. Well, then that's just a claim you're making. I'm not going to trust you.
Yeah, I really don't watch the news much. I get it through YouTube with people putting up videos. But they are ridiculous. They are like teenagers, and I don't see how it's not obvious, even to the common man, that it's just all infotainment, as you call it.
Yeah. You've seen Family Guy, right?
Yes, not recently, but yeah.
So you know the dog Brian Griffin, sort of the stuffy liberal.
Sure.
It's gotten to the point where Morning Joe, who is basically Brian Griffin incarnated as a human being, is the only wise man on the legacy media. And that's so sad to me. They could have done so much better, and they've done such a poor job for the last year. They've basically destroyed their own capabilities. So now if we actually get tyranny, nobody's going to trust them to report on it. That's the problem.
I've been in this seeing they're not doing their job for many years. I've been conspiracy theorists for many years, and all of these things just seem like, okay, now it's obvious. This is the stage I'm at. It's obvious now, but I think people knew it before. And the disenfranchised people that I get the privilege to talk to, the poor people or crippled people, they all know these things. They're like on it. They know more than I do sometimes. They're better conspiracy theorists than I am, and they don't have YouTube.
Yeah, they used to think it was a conspiracy theory when people claimed that the government was conducting surveillance on everyone. Now we know that it's actually true. They tried to deny it the same way they're trying to deny WikiLeaks right now. And each time they tried to do that, Snowden at the time and now WikiLeaks would let them respond and then dump something else to prove that they were full of crap. And that's what they're doing now. The government and the media are going down the drain. It's actually, I mean, it's amusing to watch, but it's also, it could be worrying, because then if we actually get to the point where we need the media to report on actual things that are happening that are, you know, potentially going to crush our republic out of existence, we can't count on them. We have to count on a bunch of YouTubers and bloggers to do it now.
Yeah, and again, back to Russian television. I've been watching that for, I guess, since they came on, and RT was clean news to me. It was like, okay, this news is unfiltered. I really felt clear with it, and that's why I keep up with it still, because it's like, I don't think of it as Russian. I just think of it as they're trying to be more honest.
Yeah, RT is better when it comes to U.S. affairs. The only thing I won't watch RT for is Russian affairs, because they will always seek to exonerate Putin the same way the U.S. media constantly seeks to exonerate Obama or the Bush legacy or even Trump. You know, the Drudge and Breitbart. Trump could do anything. He could, you know, sit there and urinate on homeless people, and they would say it was some sort of artistic statement. And that's dangerous. They shouldn't be doing that, for Trump or against Trump.
I agree with you. Now, this is interesting where we can bring in the satanic belief system that you have developed on your own, I believe. You know, I think that you've really come up with your own ideas about it, with the materialistic system, and where Trump is really kind of the archetype of the materialistic man in our world right now. I mean, he really fits it perfect. So where does Satanism or service to self and materialism, all of these things, how can these things be sustainable?
Well, I've moved away from sort of the blatant materialism of Satanism. I began to see it as unwise, and I began to adopt a more Epicurean system.
Explain that, please.
Well, I pleasure is the highest goal is the statement of both the most blind materialist and the Epicurean, but it's a different kind of pleasure.
What does Epicurean mean?
Epicureanism, the philosophical teachings of Epicurus. With a blind materialist, they say pleasure is the highest good, and I will seek that which gives me pleasure. The problem is people have been corrupted by society to the point at which pleasure to them means I went out and spent $10,000. I drove a sports car. I drank a $1,000 bottle of wine.
So what are other forms of pleasure?
In the Epicurean side, the statement goes, pleasure is the highest good, and I seek that which is easy to obtain for pleasure to prolong the pleasure. There are things you can enjoy if you can enjoy them or learn to enjoy them, like a cup of tea or a warm fire or something. These are things that are within the vast majority of people's ability to gain, even under a conditioned society is broken down. There's civil war, there's constant strife, we got hit by an asteroid, we're back to the Iron Age. If you can continue enjoying the things you enjoyed before, you haven't suffered at all. You've suffered absolutely no loss. You're still doing the things that you enjoyed before. But the person who wants the sports car, they're out of luck. They no longer enjoy life. They probably kill themselves. It's a statement on society. Materialistic societies cannot survive considerable stress. An Epicurean society can.
I bet you know a time in history where this has happened before.
Well, it certainly happened at the end of, the plague of Justinian, for example.
I'm going to have to look that up because I don't believe I know that part of history.
Byzantine Empire, Justinian came to power and was actually ready to retake all the old Roman provinces, made considerable headway. Then the plague hits. Whoops, we lost half our manpower. We can no longer beat these barbarians. It was some sort of, I believe it came before the actual Black Death. It was an outbreak. Killed half his soldiers.
Wow. But that was not karma, because we don't believe in karma, right, Tom?
No, I don't.
I'm teasing.
Or the Great Depression. People just got off the Roaring Twenties when they wanted to sail on a ship like the Titanic and drink their champagne, and then they couldn't do that anymore, could they? Mm-mm. But those, actually, it's funny. My grandfather, who is now deceased, used to talk about the Depression. He was a child in the Great Depression. And he said people here in my state of Vermont, in these really rural, woodsy areas, they didn't even notice the Depression for the most part because they had been just a bunch of farmers with dirt floors anyway. So they didn't lose anything. They kept farming their own food and raising their sheep or cows or whatever. And that's what they had been doing before. They weren't part of the big city feel of maybe New York or something like that.
Wow, that's a huge lesson you learned from your grandfather that you took into your spirituality.
Yeah, it's that's the basis of Epicureanism. See, the things they enjoyed, what? Boiled cabbage, having a barn dance. You don't need electricity. You don't need money to do that.
Apple pie, baby.
Yeah, they had a great time. Yeah, certainly cold in the winter, I suppose.
Well, that's the salt of the earth, though. Those are the people I really love.
Yeah, it's still like that in some parts of the world, thankfully. They'll survive better than others.
Yeah, because they're not in ego world, ego land. Yeah. They're more in what I like to call nature. But then again, where's your science in their world?
Yeah. Yeah, the ultimate fundamental funny thing here is it'll be the battle between the materialists and the ascetics that destroys the world in atomic fire, because whoever's losing will have to become ascetic because all the pleasures that they had will be stripped away. The other side will become more and more powerful and materialistic, and eventually they will kill each other.
Well, how would the ascetics do any killing?
Well, they would be simply heavily impoverished by being constantly beat upon by the materialists. The side that's winning becomes more materialistic because it may. The side that's losing becomes more ascetic because it must.
That is just amazing, because pretty much describe my life as a Buddhist.
Yep, and the United States will be the materialistic side. These people talking about our collapse, that won't come until after the atomic war, and it will happen. Hopefully not in our lifetime, but I'm not too concerned about it myself. I live in the middle of nowhere.
But I'm with you on this, because we all have feelings about the future, and I'm wondering if yours are based in visionary realms or just things you've read.
It's primarily just I think about these things in a mundane sense, and I analyze them, and I come to the conclusions that I can. I don't see any alternative other than nuclear war, unless nature preempts us, and that would be even worse. I'd rather just have it out with atomic weapons than have some massive space plague or something. Sounds like it's a less painful way to die, even if you do get leukemia, than if you're sitting there suffering with bubonic plague, I suppose.
Or earthquakes. And,
yeah, super
the end
volcano.
Of the world as we know it. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, there's no food. Oh, this is going to suck.
Yeah. Well, I think we'd all become farmers really freaking quick. We're not, we're not that stupid. And we've been taught to think that we are.
Mankind will survive. Hopefully next time when he rebuilds, he won't make the same mistakes he's doing this time.
Well, that's amazing, because you do study the occult like I do. We both read a lot of the same books, I'm sure. And you have definitely heard that there are yugas, there are time periods, and that man is an evolving creature, right?
Oh, yeah. Now, let me ask you this. Your take on the yugas. Do you believe in the literalistic translation of, 100 and something million years? Or
no.
So you do what I do, you modify it to a lower level?
Well, what I listen is what I do, because I'm very psychic. And what you do is very much more analytical and based on real world intelligence. And what I do is kind of an astral astronaut.
But you believe that the yugas are a shorter time period that fits in, I guess, more the mundane explanation of man's past.
Yeah, but I see it more as cycles. I can't see the math in it.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then I know that I'm at the end of the Kali Yuga in this lifetime, in this incarnation,
yeah.
and the beginning of what I like to call a golden age.
Yeah. See, I would agree with that. I think that we're going to get wiped out more or less pretty soon, and then people that start rebuilding, it will be a golden age once, I guess, the radiation wears off, and they'll have plenty of free land. There'll be some knowledge left behind.
Yeah, but let's, just for the people like me in the audience, you're leaving out the aspect that the third dimension, the fourth dimension are merging into one dimension, and that's going to get us closer to the fifth dimension of non-separation. The fifth dimension is more of a loving, less separated realm, where the fourth dimension is still kind of ghosty and kind of like a bardo area. We're integrating that, and I believe that's why there's going to be so much physical death. Some people can't integrate their higher self without dying first.
Yeah.
They have to go back to all their ghost bodies and integrate all that. Where some of us here on the planet can integrate our daemon without having to go through the ghost realm because we don't have any ghosts.
See, I tend to forgo that explanation in favor of continuous reincarnation that never ceases. I don't believe that it needs...
On one planet?
Huh?
On one planet, on Earth?
No, anywhere there happens to be the capability of intelligence. I believe that it's ongoing forever, infinitely. It can't be liberated, and there's no reason to be liberated from it.
Well, in a sense, I totally agree with you if incarnation is just the vehicle of consciousness, because I believe we have an individuated consciousness that even when we become one at the end of the whole saga, whatever that is, we still retain a consciousness of individuality based on a personality that we've grown over several lifetimes. But it's so interesting that we can have these discussions even though we have very different views. And thank you for being so kind.